Hi, everyone who's here. So we have a couple people here. We're going to get started and everyone else who joins can just roll right into it. So let me start off by saying welcome to this masterclass all about hosting live exchanges using presenter mode. Today, we're really going to go over how to use the tool and also how to plan for any live exchanges which you may be planning for. Let me get started by introducing myself. My name is Tila Beischer, and I am your host today. I'm a customer success manager here at ThoughtExchange. I work with thought partners like yourselves to help you to plan exchanges, to really execute them, and to ensure that they are aligned with your objectives. Here's what we're going to be covering today during this class, all about hosting live exchanges. We are really wanting to focus on what does it take to successfully plan and then execute an exchange using presenter mode. And so your learning outcomes today are to have a really clear understanding of why and when there's a value in hosting a live exchange, to know which elements that you'll want to plan for. So what are those pieces that you're going to want to prepare before your meeting or your event? And then to really have a robust understanding of how to use the tool in your live meetings. This is a 30-minute session today. We're going to spend about 20 minutes going through the product, and then we'll spend about 10 minutes actually participating in an exchange. So let's get started talking all about why you would want to use a live exchange. And if you're here, I'm sure you've already put some thought into this about why you're going to be hosting one of these. And really the value of them is that your virtual meetings, your virtual conferences, your events, they should be really exciting and worthwhile. You're asking people to invest time in learning something that you're teaching them or in participating. So what Thought Exchange allows you to do is to make that a really diverse and exciting event using a presenter mode exchange. And what you can do is to really use an exchange in a meeting, an event, to gather and access diverse perspectives in your organization, to be really inclusive as you're gathering input, and to make sure that your event is in line or aligned with people's expectations and what they're looking for. And so exchanges take about 10 minutes and they give you the opportunity to hear from everybody in the room. And think if you're hosting an event of 300 people and you want everyone to ask a question, you wouldn't have time to do that in a traditional setting, or you wouldn't always have the opportunity to address everything that comes up. An exchange allows you to really understand the perspectives of everyone, to have that enterprise level conversation and to address what comes up. And so these exchanges, when you run them, they really contribute to well-organized and focused meetings. The order of the thoughts will help you with prioritization, whether that be in planning an agenda, whether that be in addressing a Q&A, a panel. Gives you the ability to drill into a thought to keep meetings really focused. And as a leader, you're able to scan into the thoughts and to really understand what's coming up next, so you can keep really organized in your meeting. And perhaps most importantly is that these live exchanges, when you're hosting them, they allow your participants in your meetings and your events to feel really heard and to be included in the decision-making process. And so I wanted to share 3 different use cases with you today for how you could think about implementing this tool that you have access to your own meetings and your virtual events or your virtual conferences. The first here is to support in planning an event. So maybe you want to run an exchange for an upcoming meeting, upcoming conference, to build the meeting agenda and use the priorities outlined in the exchange. That's something that we will do very frequently internally here at Thought Exchange. Is at the start of our meetings, we might start with an exchange. What are the most important things that we need to talk about as a team today? Everyone shares and rates thoughts, and then we go through the top thoughts and use those as actually the agenda for the meeting itself. The second way that you can really have this be powerful is to use it after a presentation, either to gather questions, so in a more Q&A style, that's what we're going to do today, or to ask what else do we need to talk about. What I see in education quite often is people really using Thought Exchange at the end of presentations to cement key learnings too. So what are the insights that you learned today that you're going to take forward into your work? What are the things that you need more clarity on from what we talked about today? So you're using the tool as a wrap-up function for your meeting or for your presentation. And that's exactly what this third point is here, is as a wrap-up. So what do we need to do to move this work forward? What are our key insights from our event, etc.? And when it comes to asking questions and to thinking about how do I write the correct question, we have a lot in the Exchange gallery targeted just for hosting these presenter mode exchanges. So we have lots of questions that you can use templates to pull from. All right, so if we're thinking about planning and what you should be considering as you're planning to host your first live exchange, or if you've hosted one before as you're planning for your next one, these are really the three key pieces that you want to consider and address. So the first are the administrative details, and this is why you're running the event. So what's your objective? Who is your audience? If I was using today, I am running an event and my objective is to teach you how to use live exchanges. And the reason that I'm running or hosting a live exchange within that is to give you the opportunity to ask questions at the end of the presentation. What this does is it really guides me directly to the question that I would be asking. The second piece is to set up the exchange. So I always recommend setting the exchange up ahead of time. Have everything prepped and ready to go. If you need support in learning how to set up exchanges, we do have getting started workshops that you can attend, and we can send you those in a follow-up. And then the third piece here is your technical setup. So that's not just that you set up the exchange ahead of time, but that you have everything ready to go. So see, I have my tab ready here so that when we're going into the exchange, I have my tab, I can just click on over. I've tested it on the tool that I'm screen sharing on. So I'm using Zoom. I've already tested this out. And I've considered my audience. So has the audience used ThoughtExchange before? If this is your first time running a live exchange with your organization, you might want to add some buffer time into your agenda to talk through, this is what ThoughtExchange is, this is why we're using it, this is how you're going to participate. So that informs your agenda too. All right, what we're going to do next is actually move into a product tutorial. And what I want to do is to spend, we have about 12 minutes here, so the majority, the meat of our time to really go through and talk about how do you successfully use presenter mode to run a live exchange. And this tool here where we're looking, this is the ThoughtExchange app. And I'm going to show you two different versions of it. We're going to look here in our classic view, but I do want to teach you how to use our new leader app as well, which just recently launched. So when you're running a live exchange, any exchange can be hosted as a live exchange. So that's a powerful tool. If you are running an exchange and you are running it with all of your staff and you feel like there's not enough participation, but you have a staff meeting coming up, you can actually host that exchange live in that staff meeting and get everyone to participate to boost up those numbers. That's something that you're going to find as you start running more and more frequent exchanges, is that the ones that you host live will often have higher participation rates because there's that accountability of being in the room together. I could say, hey, I see there's 25 people on this Zoom call and only 20 of you have participated in the exchange so far. With that being said, any exchange can be run as a live exchange or hosted. But if you look in the exchange gallery, which you can find when you click on create, there is an area that we've set up for you, which has all of the different types of exchanges that you could run for anything live. So you can see we have lots of events here, lots about briefing, lots about presentations. If you're an education partner, when you look at this screen in your own account, you're actually going to see some things that are tailored just to education too. And we have this meeting area too. So if we were to look into team meetings, I could actually see some templated questions for me. What are some topics for us to discuss as a team? Remember, that's the one that we talked about in forming an agenda. What are your thoughts and questions for leadership? What are some of the biggest challenges for the team right now? Successful strategies or methods? If I wanted to run one of these questions, I would click on Create Exchange, and the exchange is ready for me to go. I can click on Edit and make any changes that I need to. When you are hosting a live exchange, you want to set it up, click on Launch. So you're going to build the exchange, you're going to launch it, and then from this Manage page, you're going to click on this Presenter Mode button. This opens up your toolkit for running a live exchange, and there's a couple of functions that you're going to edit here. The first up here is you can set a timer. So how long do you want people to be spending participating in the exchange during your event? 4 minutes is a really solid standard amount of time. And once you're in it, if you want to add or remove time, you can. So what I'm also going to point out here is the opportunity to transition between scrolling and traditional view. If you've explored these, you know that these are just two different user interfaces. So scrolling allows people to move up and down on the page. They can scroll to share, to star, and discover, whereas traditional is a side-by-side mode. So they're moving across different pages. We're going to use scrolling today. And another really valuable piece about presenter mode, this is something that I hear adds a lot of value for people when they start implementing it into their organizations, is that presenter mode functions with the multi-language tool. So if you have people in your audience who speak different languages, people can share their thoughts in one language and be rating their thoughts in their own language, and it all happens fluidly and automatically. If you're going to be using multi-language, I recommend using the scrolling view here. So we're going to use scrolling today. Click on present, and then this is how people would join. So there's 3 screens on presenter mode. This one here is our join screen, and there's 3 different ways that you will prompt people in to join the exchange. They can use their device and scan the QR code and join. They can head to tejoin.com and type in this 9-digit code, or see this little question mark, or this little paperclip icon down in the bottom. If you click on that, you can copy the link to the exchange and then paste that actually in the chat box. And I'll do that right now just so that you see what it looks like. We're not going to participate in this one. We'll participate in another one. But you could give people 2 or 3 minutes to join the exchange. What's really powerful is this tool up here. See this participant count. This is going to update as you're going. So as people are joining this, you're going to watch this number grow. And what I'm going to recommend for you is that you wait until about 80% of your audience is showing up in this participation before you switch over to the next view. That allows people ample time to be joining the exchange. It also builds some momentum or some mystery over what's going to happen on the next slide. So that's the join slide, and really its goal is to help people get in. There's various ways that will suit different people's needs in terms of technology. One thing that can support you as you are running your first few exchanges and you're hosting your first live exchanges is to think about your audience. So I would recommend test this out with a smaller group first. You can do exchanges with groups of 8 to 10 people. So maybe run this with your team internally first. And when you do your first larger ones, have someone there to be supporting you as you manage the chat. So you can have someone helping other people get into the exchanges if they have questions. So you're sitting and focusing in on running the exchange or hosting the exchange, and you have your support managing the chat too. Again, as you start running more and more of them, it'll become really fluid, really natural. But just for that first larger one, that's what I would recommend. And do be sure to test it out with a smaller group of your colleagues or a trusted team that you could work with. All right, so that's the join screen. What you're going to do, again, give people 2 to 3 minutes to join the exchange. Once you see that most people are in, you're watching this participant view jump up. Click on this over button here to the next slide. And this is going to be when you click on the timer button. So you'll click on play. Watch the countdown is shifting here. It's changing. You can say to people, and we do have a script for this too that we'll share in the follow-up, but please share your thoughts and rate as many thoughts of others. This connections view is going to update while people are in. So if you haven't seen connections before, you'll see it once we all hop into an exchange together, but it will show people joining the exchange and then rating the thoughts of others. And what we'll see here in this right column are thoughts shifting and rising to the top and kind of changing as people rate. So as these 4 minutes go on, those thoughts are really going to shuffle and move around. And it's a nice visual for people to be looking at while they are participating. And notice too that they still have the join option up here. So if you're on this slide and someone is confused about how to join, direct them to go to tejoin.com and type in that 9-digit code. Once that time is up, you can go over to this last slide, which is where you will see all of the thoughts listed in rating order. This is the Discover slide. So what I'm going to recommend is when the exchange pauses or stops, when this timer stops, I'm just going to zero it out right now, is to click on this stop button if you're going to be talking through the thoughts. So let me give you an example of that. If you are using this as a Q&A after a panelist presentation, what you want to do is once people have participated, you click on stop so that as you're going through and talking through the thoughts, you could imagine I have thought 1 here, question 2 here, I have a point here that I want to go through and address these. They're not shifting and continuing to move while we're talking through them. So if you click on that close button, then people cannot share and rate any more thoughts, and you can go through and talk through all the thoughts that have come up. If you'd like to, you can reopen the exchange after this and let people continue to participate. That's something that can be really valuable for those types of exchanges where you're using them as a wrap up. So what were your key insights today? We're going to give you 4 minutes at the end of our session to participate, and we'll also email the link out to you so that you can continue participating over the next day. So you get the best of both worlds there. And for you as a host or as a facilitator, this screen here really allows you, and I'm actually going to find an exchange with some participation in it so that you can see what this would look like. I want you to be able to look at the Discover view. So see, I would have all of the thoughts here, and you can actually double click on the thought and expand it. So imagine I was calling on my co-host and saying, hey, can you speak to this about speed and efficiency around creating reports? Or, hey, thank you so much for this question. Let's talk through this. It gives you the opportunity to really know that the questions that you're addressing or what you're talking through is what is most important to the group because they have all rated that as the highest thought. Something that I think is really important for you to keep in mind is that when you host an exchange live, you still have all of the capabilities and the functions in the Discover dashboard as an asynchronous exchange. So if I was going in here and I wanted to look at the word cloud, I would still have that. I'd still be able to theme through the results. I'm still able to create a report. I'm still able to look at the slides. And this is a way that some people will use live exchanges once they get really comfortable with them, is maybe you're looking through these top thoughts here and you're thinking, okay, I'm seeing a lot of the same thoughts pop up. I actually want to open up the bars and use that to guide my conversation. So you can see this exchange, I had 14 questions, but when I looked at the themes, all the questions were about theming, they're about volume, and they're about creating reports. So it addresses what I need to talk about much more simply and much more quickly. So for now, lean into this tool, and as you get more comfortable using the dashboard, hop in, use the word cloud. That can be a really exciting tool for people to look at, to talk through. And remember, in the word cloud, you can click on a word and show the thoughts within it too. So that allows you some flexibility in the way that you are facilitating. So I did mention that I want to give you some insight into the new leader app, and let me show you that now. So you all have access to this as exchange leaders. If I click on the hamburger menu up in this top left here, click on new leader. This is a new view and a new way of generating exchanges. And so what you can see here are some of the exchanges that I've set up. You can see everything in the room. We have lots of resources for you. But if I wanted to look at my active exchanges and maybe I wanted to run this one, which I'm going to here. What are your thoughts and questions about hosting your live exchanges? You could just click on these 3 buttons here. Click on present, and it opens up presenter mode. So just another way of landing in the same screen. So what we're going to do now is move into a Q&A. I want you to actually participate in this exchange. We have a smaller group today, so we should be able to get through all of your questions, and we can even take you off of mute if you want to ask some too once we go through and participate. So what I'm going to do is give you about a minute to hop in here. I'm going to ask you to scan the QR code or use the 9-digit code here, also popping the link into the chat. Perfect. So make sure that you use that second link that I put in. Ask your questions, and then we can get through as many of them as we can. Perfect. So you can see, I can see one person is in already. A piece that I hear from new exchange leaders when they're hosting exchanges is that it can feel a little bit awkward to have that quiet moment on Zoom and to not talk through while people are participating. So what we'll often recommend is just muting. So I'm going to mute for a minute while you participate. All right, it looks like not everyone on the call has been able to make it into the exchange quite yet, and that is all right. We can just have a smaller one just as a demo. For you and your learnings, this is a good example of how many people should be in an exchange. So we have a smaller webinar group today. There's just 5 of you, and you ideally want 8 people in. You can run an exchange with 5 people, but the rating won't be as robust. So think about your group size. You want 8 people. We're continuing to do this so that you get the demo function of it, so you understand how it works, but just a really important thing for you to keep in mind. All right, we're a smaller group. So I'm going to actually knock some time off the timer so we get enough time to go through everything. I'm loving some of these questions. All right, I'm actually going to add 30 seconds on and prompt you, if you haven't made it to the rating step, go there now and rate as many as you can, just so that we can see them shift around on the screen so you get a sense of what that's going to look like. I'm going to hop in and rate too, just because we're a smaller group. Awesome. So notice as you're doing that, these thoughts are shifting around, and we're also seeing these rating lines and the connections view change. So that visual is representing what's happening in the conversation. All right. We are going to move into some Q&A. So addressing what came up here. I'm going to click on the stop button. So you're not going to be rating anymore, and we're going to zoom through as many of these as we can. What do you do when no one has anything to say? Ooh, I have not experienced this yet. If you have, I'm curious, but what we'll often find is there might be a moment of pause where people are really thinking about it. So you might want to build some flexibility into your agenda to allow more time for people to participate. If you've asked a question that is requiring a lot of transparency and people aren't feeling comfortable in participating, then you could think about switching to an asynchronous, so maybe emailing it in afterwards, but we have yet to experience no one having anything to say in the exchange. Let me ask this next. Is it best to give the link and the QR code? Yes, that is best practice. So what you can say on that join screen is if you want to use your mobile device, use your camera to scan the QR code. And then I'm also going to paste a link into the chat. That way people can participate on their mobile device if they want to, or if they want to be participating on their computer, you're allowing them to do it in that way. You're meeting them with both of their needs. I did see a question down at the bottom about, can you use QR code on a computer? Just paste the link in the chat and avoid that. I don't think you can use a QR code on the computer. That's just for mobile devices. Yeah, that's this one here. Do you use your phone? So people can use the QR code if they want to use their phone, or they can click on the link in the chat if they want to join from their computer. Is there music to add while we wait? There is not. What you could do is you could play music, use your Spotify, use your Apple Music account, and play some music in the background while people are participating. Oftentimes when you're doing that, think about if people will really enjoy having the music there or if they want that quiet space to think. There's often two different personality types there, right? Do they want that quietness to be thinking, or do they want the music playing too? And you could even ask that at the start of your meeting. That's something that we will do when we run them internally. And let me just move down one more. How do you recommend practicing an exchange? I recommend using one of the exchanges in the exchange gallery. So remember, from the exchange gallery, you can get to the exchange gallery by clicking on create exchange gallery, choose one of them. You could even choose one of the getting started ones. Run it with a smaller group of individuals. So maybe that is 10 of your colleagues or one of your teams that you work really closely with, and get their insights so that you can get some practice in running it. Should you allow for extra time to rate other comments or stick with the 4 minutes? Be flexible with it, I would say. If you're finding that if you're at the end of the 4 minutes and not enough people have participated, then say, we're going to add an extra 1 minute on here to allow you to rate for some more thoughts. And then be prompting everyone to move into that rating view. When you're thinking about the value of the exchange, it's not just that people are sharing, it's also that people are rating so that they're experiencing that priority setting and that conversation mindset. And that's really where people get those ideas of empathy building, the learning across each other. So make sure that you're budgeting enough time for that. So if you are thinking about time in your agenda for an exchange, I recommend that you book about 12 minutes. So you want 4 minutes to lead up to it to give people to participate, 4 minutes to participate, and 4 minutes to talk through what came up in the exchange. You can shorten that over time as you are working with groups of people, or you could expand that. If you are running an exchange with a really large group at a webinar with 1,000 people, maybe you want to budget longer to talk through what came up. Question just came up in the chat. Do we have just one open-ended question per thought exchange? Yes. Each exchange is one open-ended question. And so if you're wanting to run multiple exchanges in an event, you can play with that too. So maybe it's, what do you want to talk about today is the start of the event. And then at the very end of it, you ask, what are your key insights or what are your reflections? All right, I'm going to keep going through these. If you need to hop off, please do, but I want to give you some time to go through and just address all of these because I think we can zip through them really quickly. Templates and scripts for this. Yes, there are templates and scripts. They are in the help site. Oh, sorry about that. They are on the help site and I will send them in the follow-up email to you today. So you'll have all those available for you. Do questions show up right away or not until participants start to rate? You may have seen that in the exchange while you were in it. So they show up right away. As soon as someone has entered the question, it pops up and the stars look empty. So no one has rated it. And then they shift and they move around once people start rating. Is there a limit to how long you can keep an exchange open? Thinking about adding to a newsletter for the month of April and compiling results for the May article. No limit to how long you can keep an exchange open, but I would challenge you to think about the value in having it for a shorter period of time. What we usually see as a best practice is if you're running an asynchronous exchange, it's open for a week to 10 days. The reason being is anything beyond that period of time often has a significant decline in participation. So after 10 days, are you really going to hear from more people than you would have in the first 10 days? And if you're doing a lot of communications, a lot of marketing, a lot of promotion, you may hear from more people. The other piece with a longer period or a longer timeline, so if you're keeping an exchange open for a month, is what is shared at the start going to be relevant to people who are rating the exchange at the end, or will things have shifted? And so that's a question that I'll sometimes see asked about things like evaluation exchanges that people want to keep open for the whole year. If you're changing things throughout the year, is a thought that is shared in September going to be as valuable when it's rated in May? Or would you be better served to run multiple exchanges and then to compare the change over time? So for this use case in specific, what I would say is to please reach out to your CSM directly and ask them for some coaching and support around deciding around that time period too. They might ask you to think about when you have a live meeting as well. So do you have a time within that April to May stretch where you could actually have people participate live as well as asynchronously? All right. How long do you generally provide for teachers to answer the thought exchange, regardless of who the group is? I recommend budgeting 12 minutes into your meeting to allow people to participate. If people need more time, you can build some flex time in as well, and you can always send the link in an email follow-up. Does the exchange timer include time for people getting signed in? The exchange timer, I usually turn on once you get in or once people are in the exchange. So notice that today I waited until you joined the exchange and then we switched in and we enabled it. That gave you time to join and to answer that survey question before we turn the timer on. And those are all of our questions for today. So we zipped through them. We ran a couple minutes long so that we could address all of them, but wanted to make sure that you had everything answered for today. Thank you so much for attending today. I really hope that this was valuable and that you feel prepared to host your own live exchanges using presenter mode. We have a lot of resources available on the help site. And remember that the help site is built into the ThoughtExchange experience. So from anywhere in the TEA, the ThoughtExchange app, you can click on this question mark icon and click on the help site and then search. So I could search script and it's going to show me that live exchange script here. I'll send the same resources in a follow-up, but wanted to highlight that for you if you're eager to get started right now and don't want to wait for that follow-up. So thank you so much for attending today. I hope that you all have fantastic days. If you have questions after this, you have my email to ask questions and we'll be sharing all those resources and a follow-up with you. All right, take care, everyone.